People used to cover their mirrors after someone died. Back in the Victorian era, after someone died, they would immediately go to their house and cover their mirrors with black cloths. This is because they believed that if they walked past the mirror and saw their deceased loved one looking back at them, it meant they would die next. They also thought the spirit would be forever trapped inside the mirror and would never be able to find peace. There were also just a lot of superstitions around mirrors back in that time. People thought that spirits could come through them. People thought mirrors brought bad luck. People thought that if you looked at yourself in the mirror, you would find the secret truth about yourself. But yeah, there are a lot of very creepy vintage photos of people covering their mirrors with black blankets or cloths. This was a banned episode of Betty Boop. This episode came out in 1934 and it was called Ha Ha Ha. In the episode, Betty discovers that her creepy clown friend named Coco has a bad toothache. And instead of taking Coco to a certified dentist to help his problem, Betty Boop thinks that she is more suited for the job. So in one scene, Betty takes some pliers and continuously yanks on Coco's tooth with zero success. So Coco is like screaming in pain because obviously it hurts. So Betty decides that she should give him some laughing gas. Well, she ends up using way too much on him, which causes the gas to spill out into the entire town. And this causes inanimate objects like cars, clocks, light posts to laugh uncontrollably as well. And this episode was ultimately banned for drug use, as it says. Parents didn't want their kids watching this episode and getting ideas. More banned episodes over on my YouTube channel. Here are some extremely disturbing things that happened on the set of The Wizard of Oz. So you know that scene where it's snowing and they all fall asleep in the poppy field? The snow that was used was actually asbestos, which is a toxic chemical and literally should not be touched or inhaled. They used to put it in old houses when they were being built because they didn't know how harmful it was. And today, if people are removing asbestos from buildings, they have to wear masks and full body safety suits. Next, we have an accident that happened to Toto. Toto was stepped on during shooting, and they had to replace her with a doggy double for 2 weeks of filming while she recovered from her injuries. So she ended up being okay in the end, but that's horrible. The Wicked Witch wore copper-based green makeup that was dangerous to ingest, but the makeup gave her severe skin burns during the scene where she leaves Munchkinland in a blast of smoke and fire. And the Tin Man's aluminum-based makeup caused an infection in Jack Haley's eyes. So there were so many issues on this set, but honestly, I still love the movie. You're about to hear some of the creepiest sounds that have ever been recorded. The first sound is the sound of Saturn. It's actually a really eerie noise. It's a reminder that space can be noisier than one would expect. The next sound is a tornado siren, which obviously warns people when a tornado might be in the area. Next, we have the sound of a red fox. They make a noise that sounds like a woman screaming or like someone's in distress, and police are often called because the foxes sound so human. Yeah, I would not want to hear that in the middle of the night. And lastly, we have a recording of the first human voice. This was recorded in 1860, and it's a person singing Eau Claire de la Lune. I couldn't show you the whole thing, but how creepy is that? This is a teddy bear that is so dangerous that it has to be locked up. This bear is located in England in Bolsover Castle, which was originally built in the 12th century. And one of the strangest things about this place is that inside of it, there was a bear named Mr. Ted that is said to be extremely cursed and haunted by something evil. Now, staff are so afraid of him, which is why he is locked in a glass case surrounded by chains, which is so weird to see because you'd never think someone would be like threatened by a teddy bear. Apparently, this bear is known to cause headaches and nausea to anyone that is standing near it. There are also numerous occasions where people have heard this bear growling at them. There was this one time a news crew was allowed to go to the castle to see this bear, and at 3 a.m. during the witching hour, all the cameras turned off, and the producer got so sick that he was taken to the hospital. So this bear does not play around. This is a story about a doll that actually aged. Now, normally when you own a doll for a very long time, it starts to naturally deteriorate. But this particular doll actually aged, like got wrinkles, got older. It ended up looking like someone in their late 80s or 90s. So a lot of people believe this doll to be extremely haunted. This anonymous family originally got this doll on Christmas. She had beautiful long hair, eyes that sparkled, a dress with a lace trim, and the little girl played with it for years and years until eventually she got older and grew out of it. And it was still in good condition morning when it was placed in a box in the attic and forgotten about. Years later, the family was cleaning out the attic and they stumbled across the doll once again, but this time it looked wrinkled and extremely aged. It says the arms were stiff and mummified. They said the eyes were the most haunting part about this doll because they looked so human, and they instantly detected this presence with the doll like a spirit. And it still just remains a huge mystery as to what the heck happened with this doll. Because in my family, we still have dolls from the early 1900s and they did not do this, so. This is why some people are afraid of the tooth fairy. Now, most people know the tooth fairy as this sweet, fun-loving little fairy that will take your tooth and give you money in exchange. But there are some legends from Europe that go much darker than this. And these tales often involve witches who disguise themselves as the tooth fairy. Some kids are actually afraid when they lose their tooth, so they throw it out as soon as possible so a witch cannot find them. Because it's believed in some places that if a witch finds your tooth, she will be able to gain complete control over that person. So if she has that part of you, she will ruin your life. There's one English legend that tells of a witch named Jenny Greenteeth. She was a witch that was said to hide in scum-filled ponds to catch unsuspecting children. Now, parents would usually use this Jenny Greenteeth to frighten their children into obedience. And the pond scum in which the witch hides is said to resemble green teeth. So this story is used to encourage children to brush their teeth so they don't get gross teeth like the witch. Is said to be one of the creepiest kid shows that was ever made. This was a real show called Ooby that aired in 2000, and it was actually created by the same people who started Sesame Street. The idea is simple. Instead of puppets, it's just the hands talking with ping pong balls for the eyes. But there's just something very unsettling about the whole thing. People have said the way the characters talk is very disturbing, the way they move around. Them being puppets without actually being puppets is almost as if we're watching the skeleton of puppets perform, or like a puppet that's just made out of flesh. And yes, this show wasn't made to actually be scary in any way, but it's on the list of the scariest kid shows ever because some kids really did have nightmares. This person that you're looking at right now does not exist. There is a real website out there called thispersondoesnotexist.com, and it basically just shows a bunch of randomly generated faces, but none of these people exist in real life. This website was launched by a software engineer named Philip Wang, and it's an AI system that comes up with some of the most realistic looking faces of non-existent people that machines have produced thus far. It's definitely one of the eeriest sites that I've ever been on in my life because these people look so real, but it's just literally a bunch of people's faces mishmashed to look like one. This site shows how easy it is becoming for people to create fake images that look plausibly real, and the generator creates a new face every 2 seconds. So if you want to see this, definitely go look for yourselves, but I warn you, it's eerie. This is why everybody was afraid of this particular Toys R Us store. This store is located in Sunnyvale, California. It was built in 1970 over an old ranch that existed in the 1800s. The ghost of a man named Johnny Johnson is said to haunt the land around this Sunnyvale Toys R Us, since it was built exactly where he had died. Staff have reported hearing their names being whispered to them, feeling cold breezes in the aisles, literally seeing toys move around on their own, and in the women's bathroom, sinks constantly turn on by themselves. And most of the female employees have said they felt someone playing with their hair. Staff was so convinced there was a ghost there that one day they decided to have a seance in the middle of the store. And they actually ended up getting a photograph of the ghost. This is a real photo of them all sitting on the ground. And behind them there's a silhouette of a man who's leaning against one of the shelves. He's oddly surrounded by this really bright light, even though they were sitting in the dark. And they believe this figure in the photo to be the ghost of Johnny Johnson.